The ocean has always been humanity's greatest fear, and every culture created monsters to explain why. This is ranking the most terrifying mythical sea creatures from scary but defeatable to literally unkillable based on their power, the destruction they caused, and what it took to stop them. Level 1, Cetus, the sea monster of Ethiopia. Starting at the bottom, we have Cetus, the sea monster from Greek mythology that terrorized the coast of Ethiopia. Cetus is famous for being the creature Perseus saved Andromeda from, but compared to what's coming, it's basically just a really big, angry fish. King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia ruled Ethiopia, and Cassiopeia made the fatal mistake of bragging that her daughter Andromeda was more beautiful than the Nereids, the sea nymphs. Poseidon got offended and sent Cetus to destroy the kingdom's coast, killing people and destroying ships. The oracle said the only way to stop Cetus was to sacrifice Andromeda by chaining her to a rock as an offering. As Cetus approached to devour her, Perseus flew in on his winged sandals, shouldered Medusa's head, and turned the monster to stone. Problem solved. Cetus was dangerous to coastal villages and ships, but it was still just a mortal creature that could be killed by a hero with the right weapon. It didn't have regeneration, it wasn't invincible, and it served a specific punitive purpose rather than existing as external chaos. At level 1, Cetus represents a powerful but ultimately defeatable sea monster that one hero could handle. Level 2, Scylla, the six-headed terror. At level 2, we have Scylla from Greek mythology, one half of the famous deadly duo that gave us a phrase between Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla is way more dangerous than Cetus because she's a permanent fixture that claimed countless lives. Scylla was once a beautiful nymph who was transformed into a monster. Her lower body became a mass of tentacles and dog heads, while her upper body remained somewhat human. She lived in a cave on one side of a narrow strait, and whenever ships passed, she'd reach out with her 6 long necks, each mouth grabbing and devouring a sailor. The horror of Scylla is that she's unavoidable if you're sailing through that strait. Odysseus had to sail past her during his journey home, and even knowing she was there, even being warned, he still lost 6 men, 1 to each head. There was no fighting her, no defeating her, just accepting the loss and sailing through as fast as possible. But Scylla's limitation is that she's geographically contained. She can't leave the strait. She's not actively hunting ships across the ocean, she's waiting for ships to come to her. Sailors who knew the route could try to stay as far from her side as possible, though that meant risking Charybdis on the other side. At level 2, Scylla represents inescapable localized danger but limited range. Before we dive deeper into mythological terror, hit subscribe. These sea monsters get exponentially deadlier. Level 3, Aspidoshalon, the island whale. At level 3, we have Aspidoshalon from medieval European mythology, a creature so massive that sailors would mistake it for an island. This represents a terrifying escalation because the monster itself is a trap. Aspidoshalon was described as a whale so enormous that vegetation grew on its back. Sailors would see what looked like a safe island, land on it, set up camp, and light fires to cook food. The heat from the fire would wake the creature, and it would dive deep underwater, drowning everyone on its back. But the Aspidoshalon had another deadly trick. It would open its mouth and release a sweet smell that attracted fish. When enough fish gathered, it would snap its mouth shut and swallow everything. Some versions described it doing the same thing with ships, luring them close with a smell before swallowing them whole. The medieval bestiaries used Aspidoshalon as a moral lesson about the devil's temptations, but the creature itself represents something genuinely terrifying, a predator so large that you don't realize you're in danger until it's too late. The ocean itself becomes an enemy when islands might be alive. At level 3, Aspidoshalon represents deception at a massive scale, where safety is an illusion. Level 4, the Kraken, a ship destroyer. At level 4, we have the Kraken from Scandinavian mythology, the giant squid or octopus that could drag entire ships to the bottom of the ocean. This is where sea monsters become nightmares for anyone who sails. The Kraken was described as being so massive that when it surfaced, sailors thought it was a chain of islands. Its tentacles could reach the top of a ship's mast and drag the vessel underwater in seconds. But the Kraken didn't even need to touch you to kill you. When it dove back underwater, it created a whirlpool so powerful that it would suck down any nearby ships. Norwegian sailors reported seeing the Kraken rise to the surface, and the most terrifying part was what happened next. Schools of fish would swarm around it, which initially seemed like good luck for fishing, but smart sailors knew that fish gathering meant the Kraken was below, and they needed to leave immediately before it surfaced. The Kraken couldn't be fought or defeated in more stories. The best you could do was pray, sail away fast, and hope it wasn't interested in your ship. Some tales say loud noises or cannon fire might scare it back into the depths, but That was desperation, not strategy. At level 4, the Kraken represents unstoppable destructive power that makes the ocean itself hostile to travel. Level 5, Charybdis, the living whirlpool. At level 5, we have Charybdis from Greek mythology, Scylla's counterpart and arguably more dangerous because Charybdis doesn't just kill individuals, it destroys everything. Charybdis was once a naiad, a water nymph who was transformed into a monster by Zeus as punishment. She became a massive mouth at the bottom of the sea that swallowed enormous amounts of water 3 times a day, creating a whirlpool so powerful it could drag down entire ships. The strait where Charybdis lived was so narrow that avoiding her meant sailing close to Scylla. Odysseus had to choose, lose 6 men to Scylla or potentially lose his entire ship to Charybdis. He chose Scylla. Later in his journey, he encountered Charybdis again, and this time she destroyed his entire ship. Odysseus only survived by grabbing a fig tree branch and hanging on while Charybdis swallowed and regurgitated the wreckage. What made Charybdis more dangerous than Scylla is that Scylla's threat is predictable and limited. Charybdis is random, total, and inescapable if you get caught. You can't fight a whirlpool, there's no weapon that works. You either avoid it entirely or you die. At level 5, Charybdis represents nature's raw power, manifested as pure destruction. Level 6, Leviathan, the apocalyptic sea serpent. At level 6, we have Leviathan from biblical and Jewish mythology, a sea monster so powerful that God himself points to it as proof of his supreme power. This isn't just a dangerous animal, this is a creature that represents chaos itself. Leviathan is described in the book of Job as an enormous sea serpent with impenetrable scales, breathing fire, and so powerful that nothing on earth is its equal. Weapons bounce off it, spears and arrows are like straw to it. When it moves through the water, it leaves a glowing wake. When it breathes, it shoots out flames. But here's what makes Leviathan truly apocalyptic. According to Jewish eschatology, Leviathan cannot be killed by humans or even angels. At the end of days, God himself will slay Leviathan, and its flesh will be served as a feast for the righteous. Until then, it lives in the ocean as proof that some creatures are beyond human comprehension and control. Leviathan represents the untamable ocean, the chaos that existed before creation, and the reminder that humans don't rule the deep. No hero can fight it, no weapon can harm it. Only divine intervention at the end of the world will finally end it. At level 6, Leviathan represents apocalyptic power that only God can defeat. Level 7, Jormungandr, the world serpent. The absolute peak, Jormungandr from Norse mythology isn't just a sea monster, it's the serpent that encircles the entire world and whose movements trigger apocalypse. Jormungandr is one of Loki's 3 monstrous children. When Odin discovered the serpent, he threw it in the ocean surrounding Midgard, but Jormungandr grew so massive that it completely encircled the world and bit its own tail. It lies at the bottom of every ocean, and when it shifts, it causes tsunamis and earthquakes across the globe. Thor tried to kill Jormungandr during a fishing trip. Using an ox head as bait, he hooked the serpent and pulled it up from the depths. The serpent was so enormous that just lifting its head above water nearly capsized the boat and caused storms across the ocean. Thor raised his hammer to deliver the killing blow, but his terrified companion cut the fishing line. The prophecy of Ragnarok states that Jormungandr will finally release its tail and leave the ocean, poisoning the entire sky with its venom. Thor will kill it in the final battle, but after killing it, Thor will only manage to walk 9 steps before dying from the serpent's poison. Here's why Jormungandr sits alone at level 7. It's not just a sea monster, it's the boundary of the world itself. Its very existence defines where the ocean ends. When it moves, the entire world feels it. When it dies, reality changes forever. It will kill the god of thunder even as it's being killed. That's not just power, that's cosmic significance. Most mythical sea monsters can be avoided or defeated. Jormungandr is the ocean itself, and when it finally moves, the world ends. Drop a comment on which sea monster you think was most terrifying, and if you want more mythology breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed.